and welcome to another Sunday afternoon or evening, depending on where you are joining us from. I'm Darlene, and this is Digital Photo Mentors weekly live stream. This week, we're going to be talking about black and white conversions. Last week, we did color, so I thought it only appropriate that we do black and white this week. And ironically enough, on Friday, which happened to be the coldest day in our city in the last 12 months, probably the coldest day of this year as well, where it was about minus 40 Celsius. That's where Celsius and Fahrenheit meet up. I did a studio photo shoot with a bunch of models. So I've got some of those images that I can show you as well, because I did all black and white, or that was my plan and my vision for that photo shoot. So today we're going to be talking about what kinds of images work well in black and white, how to do a proper black and white conversion using Lightroom or Luminar. And if you are using something else, you should have a similar kind of black and white conversion tool, whether that be On One or Topaz or something else. So let's see who is here. Kelly, yay! Kelly finally made it. Who else? Minus 34 today. Yes, so Rob wants me to show that because we actually got an emergency broadcast last night to turn off all unnecessary electrical things because blackouts were going to circulate. So let's see. Yes, Kelly's in our area, and let me just see if I can get this on the screen here. I do have. There we go. So that's our current temperature here in Edmonton. That is Celsius. So it is very cold. Well, we stay inside for the most part, and we drink a lot of coffee and stay warm. Yes. Debbie in Wisconsin. Marguerite, blustery. Is it this blustery, Marguerite? Danelle is here, of course. Nancy, cold but not as cold. We are inside and we have heat and lots of blankets. So we're all good here. Holly, Neil, Shelly from Prince George. Hey, how's the temperature up there? You're north as well. Cool-ish for you in the Cayman. I've got your images, Karen. Yes, Google matches up, or Fahrenheit and Celsius match up at minus 40. That's where they match. Yes, Lee in St. Louis, Tony in Florida, Belgium. Joe, welcome. So, just for those of you who are joining for the first time, put a number 1 in the chat so that we can welcome you if you are here for the first time. And thank you for joining us. Barry from London. Sounds like we have some new people joining. So that's awesome. Thank you from wherever you've joined from. So let me hop over into my Lightroom. I got to turn on my little pointer and hop over to Lightroom. So this is, excuse me, this is the photo shoot that I did on Friday, and some of my favorite images. I've processed a few already. So I wanted to just show you some conversions, and let me get over here in the corner. There we go. Welcome, Paul. And we have one person who's watching on Facebook. Unfortunately, we can't see your name unless you log into the StreamYard app on Facebook. So come join us on YouTube, and then we'll be able to see your name. We loved Philly. Oh, I'm gonna see if I can pronounce your name. Is it Jorgen? Am I saying that correctly? Crown Prince has just become the new king. Abdicated. Oh, interesting. Interesting. And of course, England just changed from queen to king as well last year. Okay, so what I want to start with is the images that you guys sent in, because people sent a few. Marguerite has sent some. This one here. And is Stephanie here? Did I see Stephanie? I have not seen Stephanie. Oh, she is here. Okay, so you're in Oregon and it's icy and snowy. Okay, so I wanted to start with Stephanie's because she wanted to know if this was a good candidate for black and white. And I think it is. Anytime you have a subject that is like oldish, antique-ish, I think it's a good candidate for black and white. But what I look for is contrast. Black and white loves contrast. And if you don't have it, the black and white can look a little bit flat. So let's take this one. And her preferred software of choice is Lightroom. So we're going to do this one in Lightroom. And then I'll show you some in Luminar for those of you who are using Luminar. Okay. I may even take this one into Luminar to do some finishing touches. We'll see. I haven't decided yet. So the first thing that I always want to do, one thing you want to make note of when you are doing black and white is do not choose one of the monochrome options here, which is your camera matching. Okay, so camera matching, because it's a raw file, do not choose monochrome here. Okay, so this is the camera profiles, because when you choose camera matching, you get no options for adjusting the tones. Okay, so it'll say black and white here normally, and we get some sliders. Instead, what you want to choose is, we'll just leave it on Adobe Color, right? And then just click this button right here. They've changed it now. So there used to be some different things here. Auto used to be down here. Now black and white is here. Okay, so just click the black and white button and it converts it to black and white. But when we go down to, oh, that's interesting. Nope, don't want to do that either. So we do not want camera monochrome. Let's get off of that. Let's just go to faithful. Okay. We should. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so it's not converting me here. Something is up with this one, because I should be able to choose black and white. I need Adobe monochrome. There it is. There we go. Okay, so we need Adobe monochrome. So I've messed around with the camera profiles. We need Adobe monochrome, and now you can see that this thing that said color mixer, right? Because if we do Adobe Color and then do black and white, oh, no, it does. Now it wants to do it. So we have to be on one of the Adobe profiles. Okay, so either Adobe Color or Adobe Black and White to get these sliders. Okay, and the important thing here is that everything that was in the original image in color, right, is here in the sliders. But before I do this, I'm actually just going to adjust the highlights a bit, because I want to bring that sky down. Okay, so give us a little bit more drama. And I'm going to do the usual shift double click on the whites and the blacks to give us a bit more contrast. I'm going to go this way and a little bit of clarity, right? I'm probably going to select the sky and darken it as well. So we can still go back down here and adjust the sliders. I'm not done with that yet. So I'm just going to do the sky and bring the exposure down a little bit. Okay, so this is just starting point. Now when I go down to the black and white mix sliders, right, remember where the color was? So wherever there was blue, this slider is going to affect. Okay, so see how that affects the sky? And we can add a whole bunch more drama. But you have to be careful of these sliders, because see what's happening down here? We've got this weird halo. Okay, it looks like some grasses were moving because of the exposure. They're blowing. So be careful of going too far with this one. Okay, so you start to get this halo. We can also darken the greens and the yellows. See how much yellow there is in the grass. Okay, so I'm going to be a little bit more conscious of darkening that blue too much. And let's see what we can do with yellow. So yellow, we can darken this grass down so that the eye goes more to the building than the grass, right? And I'm going to add a vignette on here as well. So far, we've just darkened the exposure, darkened the sky, and used the black and white mix, okay? I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yes. Let's add a vignette. So vignette is under your effects panel, and I'm just going to use a preset. So I have various presets set up for myself. So edge darken is one that I use a lot. This is medium, and it just applies these settings here, okay? What is this white thing? It looks like there's, oh, I see that's the sky. And I'm not sure it's picking that up when I darken the sky. So see how it's really bright down here still? I'm going to check this mask for the sky. Move this back over here. And to see the mask, just press O on your keyboard. And as suspected, it's not picking this area up. So, and it's picking up a bit of the building, right? So I'm going to do subtract subject, first of all, to see if it takes it off the building, which it did, okay? And then I'm going to add, and I'm going to do add object. So when you do add object, it allows you to just sort of paint in where an object has been missed. So I want to get that area, right? Now it's getting the grass as well, so not the best option. So I'm going to undo and try. Remember, I'm adding to this one. I'm going to use the brush set to auto mask. So this one is tricky because I don't want to get the grass. So I'm just trying to go in here and get some of these, this white area, so that it's not super white in the final image. See how it's missed part of the sky in here? And when you have this auto mask, it finds the edges for you. Okay, so as I'm painting, it's finding the edges. Now, if I turn the overlay off, so O, so keyboard shortcut, Rob, if you want to please share a link to the keyboard shortcut. Okay, so now you can see that it is picking up this area as well. Okay. So it looked like to me there was a piece of garbage there, but on second inspection, it was just the mask of the sky. So check your masks really carefully. It's possible that the sky is not masking very well down here either, and it's going to be a really, really tricky one to do with Lightroom, okay? If you wanted to do a more complex mask, a more precise mask, you'd have to take it into Photoshop. Okay? But I'm okay with that. Right. While I'm here, I'm also going to do another one and see if it picks up the barn as the subject, which it did. Right. Now you can see that it's also picking up that little spot again. So once again, I need to subtract from here. So subtract takes away from the mask. So I'm removing this from the mask. And that's about right. Okay. So I just don't want this white area because I'm going to be adding some texture. Don't want the sky in here. Don't want this sky in here. Okay. So now I've got the barn, which is a really cool barn, by the way. And we're going to add some clarity and some texture. So see what that's doing? If I come in a little closer, it's really picking up this old wood. Okay. See that? That's the clarity and texture to the old barn. And let's name this one barn. I wish that it did auto naming when you do select sky and select subject, and it doesn't. I wish it did. Okay. And on second inspection, I feel like I've gone too far with the green here, so I'm just going to brighten the grass a little bit more. Okay, something like that. Now, if I want to make the sky more dramatic, I can add some black into the sky and some white. So we bring those clouds out a little bit more, and we can give it a bit more clarity and texture. So in answer to your question, Stephanie, does this make a good black and white? What do you think? I think it looks fantastic. Great composition too. The triangle shapes, like you've got repetitive triangle shapes here from the barn and this one here. Really, really cool composition. The sky is great, very dramatic. Yeah, the white part of the sky, it does. I thought it was a piece of garbage or something. An old schoolhouse. Well, it's a great photo subject. Of course, photographers love things that are falling down, right? All right. Any other questions about this one? That was a great conversion. Now, if you want to do some color toning with this one, okay, we can use color grading to add a tint. They used to call it duotone, I believe, or toning. It used to be called duotone, then it used to be called toning or something else. Now it's called color grading. Okay. If you want to create like a sepia tone or something similar, go into the shadows, pick a tone. I'm going to go somewhere in the orange, yellow orange range, and then just increase the saturation. Okay. Probably a little more yellow. Sepia is almost green, actually. And you can even darken the shadows using these sliders. So remember, I showed this tool before. Okay, so look at the drama we can add using this color grading tool. So not only can we add some brown into the shadows, we can darken the shadows and add more drama as well. Okay, I like it. Now let's see if we want to do a duotone. A duotone has two different colors. So I'm going to add blue into the highlights just a little bit, like so. Okay, so this is a duotone. Or we could do something similar. We could do more red in the sky, okay, and more yellow in the base, the shadows. Remember, you could brighten the highlights here as well. Okay. So you can do some really neat things with this color grading tool. So don't forget that this color grading tool works to apply duotone or tritone, because you've got midtones as well that we're not even using, as well as the luminance sliders. So don't forget the luminance sliders. I'm going to leave the highlights just nice and clean like that. Another one that I like to do is I like to do like a burgundy in the shadows, kind of like this, and then more of a yellow in the highlights. So it's almost like a golden tone, and I kind of like that color as well. Okay, so play around with the different colors. You can come up with some really neat things. Let's go a little bit more saturation. How about that? Okay, so now we have sort of a burgundy, almost apocalyptic. Let's move to Marguerite, and I want to do some in black and white and Luminar as well. So I want to come back to this one, Marguerite, because I think this one will work well also. But I want to switch over to Luminar for those that are using Luminar. And let me just go back to my folder. Okay, so this is the one that I actually did. It's an image of Trish's, I believe, if Trish is here. I think West Coast Forest. Let me just check here. It's in the forest. Yeah, so yeah, this is Trish's image. So I wanted to show this one because this is the one I used on the featured image. And I already did some editing, I think, on this one. Oh, this is a Photoshop document. That's why I can't use that one. Let me go and find the other one. Just have to find her original. I think it's in the forest. Where is her original? It's probably this one. There it is. Okay, so I'd already converted it to black and white, which is what I did to make the black and white image. So let me show you. I'm going to undo this one and show you how to do this in Luminar. Okay. Let me just wait for it to load. Any questions about black and white? Rob, do you want to do a poll? Do you want to do a poll about who does black and white now? Like, what's their interest? How often do you do black and white? Something like that. I see that Todd is here as well. Welcome, Todd. Have you attended did you attend the live? I know you've picked up some of our courses in the recent sales go around we had over the holidays. Do a poll of some kind, Rob. Ask them about how often or how, do they do black and white? Yes, no, percentage, that kind of thing. Okay, so here is the before and after, right? And as you could see, I cleaned up a lot of stuff in here, like all these sticks, right? So let's just go backwards in the edits here. Okay, so if I go all the way back down to develop raw, and I'm just going to show you step by step what I did here rather than undoing it. Okay, so develop raw. I added a bunch of contrast because remember I said black and white loves contrast. So the original is kind of flat, but I see that there's lighting there. So what I'm looking for is some highlights and some shadows that I can push to extremes. Okay, so I pushed up the smart contrast. And what else did I do? Okay, I also tucked the blacks in here on the curve. Okay, so see that? That's adding that contrast again. I don't think I did anything else here, right? Then, even though it's going to be black and white, I did some color adjustments here. And mostly what I did here was I adjusted the yellow to be shifting the color a little bit, as well as the green. And I lowered the saturation on orange because there was these little orange things here in the background. Can you see it right here? And I didn't want the orange things showing up when I did the black and white conversion. So I just lowered the saturation and darkened them. So I darkened the orange, brightened the yellows, darkened the greens. Okay, so when I do this a lot with this color tool is I'll brighten the yellow. Okay, because when you have a forest or grass or anything green like this, you'll have both yellow and green. Okay, so I'm darkening the green and brightening the yellow to just shift the contrast in those tones so that there's greater contrast. Okay, can you see that? I could also do that with the color harmony or yes, with the color contrast tool as well. Right. Then I did landscape just to punch up the foliage. Again, same reason, adding more contrast. So I haven't even done the black and white conversion yet. I'm doing all this on the color image. Added an edge vignette to darken the edges. And then I did a bunch of cloning. Okay, so you'll see that I removed a lot of these sticks because I felt like they were just really distracting. And it will pop in after I do this. So I did some of it with the clone tool and some of it with the erasing tool. There we go. Right. So I got rid of all those sticks. See that? And then another tool that's really great in Luminar to add more drama, which is what I wanted, is dramatic. Okay. So I added some contrast here. And in doing so, I had to brighten the image a little bit. Okay. Then after all of that, then I converted to black and white. Okay. And again, look what I've done. So because I separated the greens and the yellow using the color tool, now when I do the sliders here, I can really brighten the yellows and bring those lighter green tones out and darken the greens. Okay. Notice I brought red all the way down. There's not much red in there, but it's bringing the logs and things down in color. Right. And all the other tones I've darkened. Okay, so in doing so, in creating that contrast using the color tools, right, when I get to the black and white tool, now I have more color to work with for the sliders. Okay, so sometimes it even might look a little bit oversaturated when I get here, but because we're changing it to black and white, it doesn't matter. Then I added some structure, but I masked it. So it's only applying to this middle part of the image. So I want the eye to go more into the middle, right? And then I did the opposite with the blur. Okay, so I applied a little bit of blur just around the edges. So just like a vignette to darken the edges, when you soften the edges and sharpen the middle, right? It's ever so subtle, very soft. The edges will your eye will go into the sharpest area, which is now the middle. Right. Then I added a mystical overall, which does a really nice effect. I love this tool on landscape images. Because look at how glowy it almost makes it look like a black and white infrared. Right. I love that. And then I did another final darker vignette. Okay, so see the big difference from flat to final. And if I was really, really serious about it, I might even consider removing this log or toning it down. All right, let's see what we're saying in the chat. Danelle is a big fan of black and white. Me too. Me too. What area are you in, Todd? I know you guys are chatting here. I miss where he's from. Black and white images every month for your camera club. Okay, cool. Marguerite, black and white portraits and for scenes with heavy clouds. Yeah, I mean, for me, back in the day of shooting black and white film, you had to use a filter to get the really dark sky like that. So now we're doing the same thing when we're pulling those blue sliders to darken the sky. It's the same as a red filter when you use black and white film. I'm thinking of doing a small black and white book of my faves from last year in the process of picking. Nice. Yeah, making a book is really fun. It sounds like you have more control if you start with color and convert instead of black and white from the camera. Yes. Okay. So, with the caveat, Todd. So, when I was doing the black and white session on Friday, let me show you those because what I did was I shot black and white in the camera and then I applied a preset on import into Lightroom because I was actually shooting tethered. So, I had my computer sitting on a table right next to the camera. And as I took the picture, it popped up on the computer. That's called tethered shooting. And I applied the black and white preset so that it would come up as black and white on the screen. But because it's a raw file, if you're shooting black and white or monochrome mode on your camera, but you're shooting raw, you'll see it black and white on the camera, but you'll still have the color images to work with. Let me show you. Okay, let me go to where are we here? Okay, so here's the photo shoot. Actually, you can see that they're all black and white in here, but I added a few into Luminar so that we could work with them. And I just added them in here. And you'll see they show up as black and white here, but when I bring it in, not sure why the thumbnail is showing black and white. It's a color image. Okay. So I took it in black and white on the camera, but it's showing up as color. Okay. Yes, you can do exactly the same thing, Shelley. I mean, that's what I did with Stephanie's image to begin with, right? So I adjusted the sky and the colors before, right? So I started with that and adjusted the tones before I converted it to black and white. So I always do the tonal adjustments first before converting to black and white. Photo restoration. Yes, I know you do lots of that, David. Cool. Welcome, John. Okay, so this is the one of the images that I took 2 days ago in the studio, and I can see now that I've overexposed her a little bit, unfortunately. So see, that's the overexposure. So I'm using my keyboard shortcut J. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with develop raw. Okay. I'm not sure why it took me there, but I'm going to start with develop raw, right? And because I'm shooting Fuji, the Fuji profiles do not show up here, so I just use the Luminar default one. But I know I'm going to bring that exposure down to get rid of that overexposure issue, okay? And probably the highlights as well. So I don't want to go too far because look what happens to her face, okay? It starts to look really muddy. So be very careful of darkening the highlights too far. I'm going to bring the whole thing down. I managed to do we did photos for about 7 hours the other day. It was a full day of photo shoot. Okay, so getting the exposure in line, and I want to get the color a little bit better. I'm going to convert it to black and white, but I want to make it so she's not so yellow. I feel like she's yellow. I want to try the eyedropper on the background because the background is gray. So let's just see. That's not bad. She's a little on the green side, so I'll just give her a little bit more pink. That's not bad. I still think it needs to be darker. Okay, so when you're doing things like this, okay, this image was really dramatic. I used 2 lights here, actually, I think. So one main light on her and one skimming across her. It's called a rim light. So it's behind her, pointing. It's like about here. Okay. So pointing up at her with the grid spot on it. Okay. So that's my lighting. So softbox on her. You can see the square in her eyes from the softbox. I still feel like it's too dark. But one thing I find that people have a tendency to do is to expose for the bright side of the face, or when they're setting the exposure and processing, so that this side, the shadow side, is the correct brightness, but you want to always set it so that the bright side is skin tone, like this. Okay. I'm just going to turn the saturation down a bit. Now I had her wearing this little wrap. This is actually my wrap. She's wearing my earrings and my wrap because of the colors. We wanted to sort of match the tattoo. She's got this little tattoo of a bird on her arm, and I thought the colors went really nice. So we'll start with that, and I can always come back here. Remember, develop raw shows up over here in the edits, and we can always get back to it. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is the portrait editing. So I'm going to go all the way down to portrait editing because I want to soften her skin a whole bunch. And I'll do some of this shine removal and see how that is helping these bright areas here. So it does a really good job, especially on the nose. Let me sharpen. So watch her nose. See how that bright spot gets toned down. And I'm going to do skin defect removal. I don't think she has any, but let's just do that. Okay. Now you can see that the skin smoothing is doing a really nice job. Okay. Now I'll show you a little trick. Actually, I'm going to do face after I do black and white conversion. I'll show you why. Because I want to do a little trick with it. Okay. Now let's do the black and white conversion. I might do a portrait bokeh as well. So portrait bokeh will allow me to blur the background even more if I want. So I've already blurred it because I shot with a small aperture, a large aperture, right? So I think it was at f3.2 or something like that to blur the background, and she's fairly far away from it, right? I can see it missed a spot right here. Just correct the mask a little bit. There we go. Let's do that. And I usually just go around the outside at 50%. Whenever I use this tool, I kind of just go around the outside to pick up the edges a little better so that she's not cut off. There's not pieces of her missing. Right. Oh, I'm missing the top of her ponytail. So let's just do that. Let's get the top of her hair. Still missing the top of her head. That's better. And now I could darken this. Okay. So if we want to darken the background, see that? And I'll show you the little trick that I did in Lightroom as well to add a spotlight on the background. Like so. And there's another trick for you. If you want to darken the background more, I can actually make it blue. And then when I convert to black and white, I have a color there to work with as well. Okay. So I'm actually not going to darken it. I'm just going to make it blue, and then I'll show you how that works. Okay. Because it's going to darken this blue as well as her. Okay. So now let's do our black and white conversion. So click black and white conversion. And we have the same sliders that we had in Lightroom. Okay. So yellow, typically there's lots of yellow in skin tone. Okay. So you want to be careful of darkening that because she starts to look muddy. Red, also, you'll notice in the skin, but the lips as well. So be careful of darkening here to darken the lips because there's a better way to do that. Right. Anytime, like she's got actually some veins showing in her cheek here. And you'll notice that if we darken them, they show up more. So darkening the red, right, makes all the imperfections in the skin show up more. If I brighten them or brighten the reds, see how the veins show up less here? Okay. And now the blue. Okay, so remember the background is blue, and also this bit in her the little wrap. Okay, so we can brighten the background or darken it. I'm actually going to brighten it a little bit so that it's brighter around her, and then add a vignette. Okay, magenta, no magenta. Okay, there's a little bit of that color in the wrap. So I'm just going to adjust it so that there's a variation of tones here. Okay, green, I don't see any green. Okay, now I'm going to go to that face AI, and I'll show you the magic here with face AI. This thing is brilliant. Okay, so besides the fact that you can slim and light the face, I want to show you what this does with the eyes. Okay, because we were working in a fairly dark room and I had a fairly small light, sometimes the pupils get really big and you don't see the eyes. And somebody that has really dark brown eyes like she does, they look almost black. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little trick. I'm going to change the eye color to gray. Right now, if I had done this before I converted to black and white, I could have actually used any color. But if you're doing this afterwards, you see what happens? It actually gives her blue eyes. But if I had done this before, it would have converted to black and white. But the easiest way to do it is just gray. And I love what it does to add the sparkle in the eye. Okay, I love to add the flare, the iris flare, which is like a little highlight. See down here at the bottom of the eye? See how great that is? I love that. Look at her eyes. And remember we talked about the lips, right? So this is where we can do lips darkening here, and it doesn't affect all of the little veins in her cheek. Okay? Let's remove the dark circles under the eyes. We could darken the eyebrows a bit if we want. Okay. And if somebody has a lazy eye, you can actually use enlarge eyes and just use the tool again and paint it into one of the eyes. I was actually showing her this. Okay. So see how it's got to take a minute for it to catch up. Let's see what it's doing. I'm waiting for Luminar to catch up. Let's see. The coloring is very red on the left side of her face. Did I have a filter on the light? No, I did not. You mean over here on this side? No, just to highlight. No colors. No gels. Well, interestingly enough, Mike, people are doing that here. Yes, we are doing that. You throw boiling water into the air and it instantly freezes. Okay, let me see if it's caught up yet. Okay, so now you can see the enlarged eyes, what it's doing. So if somebody has a squinty eye, for example, you can do that on one eye. Okay. Remember, if we add lip redness at this stage of the game, okay, you're actually going to get red. I'm not a huge fan of this kind of look, and it's kind of going outside of the lines on her lips. But if you like that thing, you can add, that kind of thing. You can add some color. Okay. Actually, I'm going to show you something really cool with this image. Okay, so now I'm just going to add a vignette. Okay. Let's darken that. So remember my vignette trick is turn the feather down, turn the darkness down, and then you can see the shape of it. Right? Something like that. So I'm getting the shape and positioning. So remember I lightened the background. So now it's lighter in the middle and I'm still getting this darkness on the edge. Right? I'm actually going to put it a little more off center. I want it a little more this way. I want to darken. Oh, that's too far. I want to darken the left more. Okay. Like that. So I'm really dramatic. Okay, so now I've got a nice dark edge with a little bit of a glow in the middle because we lightened it. Okay, we lightened the background. Now my finishing touch on almost any portrait. Okay, she also was concerned about. She called them the 11s here on her forehead. So I want to do a little bit of cloning. And this is a tool that people have some confusion around. So you set this clone source. So this first little target thing, come back up here. This first little target thing, wherever you click, it's going to clone from. So you're setting the source, okay? So I'm going to clone from just above here, okay? Then I'm going to dial this down smaller. And I want to clone with usually about 25 to 30%, okay? So I'm cloning from there down to here, okay? So I'm just going to draw a line like that. See that? Then I'm going to press my Alt Option key and redo the source. So now I'm selecting a new source, okay? So I'm keeping it in line. Then I'm going to do a source from here. So I'm constantly clicking to get a new source. Okay, see that? And now one thing that I tend to even out is if somebody has, see, like there's kind of an uneven or a bump on the nose, I will just come in and do a little bit more shadow. When you fill that shadow in, see what happens? The bump goes away. See that? Now under the eyes, I do the same thing here. So I set the source below where the circle is. And then I'm just cloning with that lower opacity. Okay. And it's just going to lighten any circles. The same thing with these little veins in her cheek here. I just want to sort of minimize them. And I'm just doing like one little squiggle. See, like so. She's got a little bit of it here as well. And then when I do the final softening, you'll see. She's also got like a little darker area here on the forehead. So I want to even this out. So it's about tones. Right? See how that looked like she had an indent on her head there? And this is Nancy, by the way. She's a beautiful Indigenous woman. And see what that's doing with the cloning? Right? Subtle. And I'm just going to check here to see if there's any hairs. If she had any hairs that were sticking out or anything that I wanted to get rid of, we could use the cloning tool or we could use the healing tool. I'll turn this up a little bit. So I'm just going to clone around the edge like that. If there's any hairs sticking up, just to darken them, minimize any standy outy hairs. When you're dealing with fine detail work like this, see this highlight on her finger, even things like this, just toning stuff down, right? Pay attention to the details, right? Like the hair. There's one sort of white hair that's standing out here. I'm just going to tone that one down. And this one as well. Okay, so see what the cloning is doing. There's the before, after. Okay. And then my final thing that I do on almost every single portrait is the glow tool. That's why I have it up here in my favorites. Okay. So I usually use Orton effect. It's my favorite, right? And if you take it up really far, it gives too much contrast, but I'm usually around 30 to 40 somewhere. If it's too contrasty, you can dial that down a little bit, but I don't mind it on this one. And almost always you have to bring the brightness down. It tends to brighten the image. So I'm kind of paying attention to brightness, but look at how beautiful it gives, that beautiful glow. I posted these on Facebook and somebody said that they glowed. Okay. And this is why, right? Ironically, it's called the glow tool. Go figure, right? But I wanted to show you something really cool. Okay. So there's my finished portrait. Okay. So before and after, right? So there's a full black and white in Luminar. But let me just show you a little trick here. I'm going to duplicate this layer. Okay. So D on the keyboard duplicates. And then what I'm going to do is make sure I'm on this top layer. Okay. I'm going to go to the edits and I'm going to undo the black and white. So basically, I'm going to make this one back into color. Okay. Hopefully. Might take a second. Actually, let me remove it completely. It's just catching up. Okay, let me see what everybody's saying while I'm doing that. Can you post those stats? I don't know if everybody else see the stats, Rob, about the poll. How much black and white do you do? A little with 66%, more than a little 13, a lot 13%. Black and white's my thing. I love it. 6%. Black and white is my thing too. Let's see. Do you mean the water throwing thing? Well, we could boil some water and go try it. Thanks, Danelle. That was the idea. Yeah, I really love the patterns on her arm, and it just worked so well together with the colors. Yeah, I brought my tickle trunk full of things. I had scarves and wraps, and she's wearing my earrings too. Let's see. Patio weather in Winnipeg. Oh, minus 15. Minus 15 is patio weather. Okay, why is this not turning into black and white for me? This layer should be color. So something is not right in the state of Denmark here. Oh, there we go. Finally. Okay. So you see what I did now? Okay. So I've turned this one, the top layer, back into color. Finally, it's color. Okay. Now I have some options. Okay. So because it's on this layer, I can literally just dial this down and have 50% color and have this really soft portrait, soft color portrait. Okay. Or I could change the blend mode as well. Right. So notice when I do that, right, it changes everything. So it adds more contrast. Right. So I've got lots of neat options here when I add it as color. Okay. I kind of like it about like that. Okay. Now it's getting lighter. Okay. So remember, we're on a layer. I can just come back down here to develop, darken it a bit more. Okay, now we can see that her eyes are actually gray here. So I might change her eye color to brown, which is her actual eye color. So I'm going to change that to brown. And let's just see. I kind of like that. Toronto. National had a feature back when, and there's a polar vortex. Yeah, Winterpeg. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, those of us in Canada call Winnipeg Winterpeg. I'm just going to change this back to normal blend mode. I'm still waiting for it to catch up. Still waiting for it to catch up. When I'm doing these live streams, I'm pulling video, I'm pushing video up into the cloud into 5 different places. So my computer is a little bit taxed, and I think I'm not on, I think I'm on Wi-Fi, Rob. There we go. The tip of using 2 layers, 1 color, 1 black is fantastic. I'm glad you like this idea, Dano. I use duplicate layers for tricks like this all the time, right? So see, now I darkened it. I could have just done highlights, but now her eyes are brown, which is what they should be. And we have just a little bit of color. And if I don't want it in certain places, or I want more color, remember we have masking. Okay. So now I feel like it's gone too contrasty and too dark. So back to develop raw. And let's go not so dark. All right. Yes, funny. The cloud is full of boiling water. The cloud. I mean, technically I'm not using the cloud to process, but it's just my computer is taxed because um I am doing two things at once. So when I save this one, it will be color. But if I want to save both versions, it's really easy, Nancy, because all I have to do is turn off the layer. Let me show you that. Okay. There we go. That looks good. I'm really happy with that. And now that it's color, I might turn her eye color down just a little bit. It's a little bit too bright for these edits, right? I did it because it was in black and white and I wanted it more dramatic. But now that it's color, it just doesn't look right, okay? Her eyes should be brown, but dark brown. So let me wait for that to come back again. So if I want to save this, you're going to export it, right? Something weird is going on in the top left corner there. I don't know what that is. But let me pop over to Lightroom while that's saving, because the image that I did of her, I did some other versions yesterday. I wanted to show you this one in particular, because what happened here was actually what I call a happy accident. And Rob doesn't want me to tell anybody that it was an accident. See, now Lightroom's not even loading. Okay, so let me show you the original. That's the original. So what happened was I had light on the background because I was doing a light portrait. So I did this is called high key. Okay, so high key is light colored clothing, light background, and more light and airiness. Okay, low key is like this, right, where everything is dark. Okay, you can see the edits that I did on that one. See how her eyes are brighter. And then this accident one, so it came out where the flash on her, the main light, didn't fire. So instead of trying to brighten her, I just went with it. And I could darken her even more, right? Like I brightened the shadows on her, but we could actually go full silhouette and just do that as well. Okay. And if I go that route, I will just clone this earring out because it's got like a weird spot there. Okay, so now this is a true full silhouette. Okay, like so. And for some reason, if you see this little red dot here, it means that your masks need updating, your AI masks. And it does that frequently recently, and I don't know why. Every time I change something, it wants me to update all the masks again. Okay. So, accident, flash didn't go off, and we got a silhouette. She has seen some of them, and she was quite happy. Yes, she was quite happy. Okay, so now if I want to save this one is going to save as color. Okay, dial the color down a little bit. Right, so we want that soft color like that. So I'm going to export. Right, and usually I export to the same place. So I've got these in a black and white photo shoot, and I'm going to save it at 2048 pixels. That's a good Facebook size. Okay. And I'm going to save this one as dash faded color. Okay. And then all you have to do is turn this layer off or hide this layer. And now I've got the black and white. And now I can export it again and call it black and white. And then I'll have both versions. Okay. See how fast that exported? Like so. And then I could export this one for her as well. Okay. So in Lightroom, you've got all your history in a different place, right? It's over here. So I've got my presets at the top here. Let me just close the presets. And then below, you've got history here. So if I want to go back to the version I had before, I can just go back here. Now, if you want to keep this one and keep the new one, this is where a snapshot comes in. So there's a little Lightroom tip, okay? So you can create what's called a snapshot. So I'm going to call it silhouette with detail. So it's got a little bit of detail on her face. And then I'm going to go to this one and create a snapshot called black silhouette. Right now I can switch back and forth easily. So no matter what I do in the history, I can always get back to those two as a snapshot. Okay. I could also make a virtual copy of one versus the other. And that's what I did with another one here that I did some light painting on. Let me find it. So this lady brought these gorgeous fans, which are ostrich feathers. And oh, I added some sparkles on her. So you want to see the before. So there's the before. And I did this one in Luminar, and I added the sparkles. See on the diamonds right there? I added the sparkles, and I put sparkles around her as well, which I thought was kind of cool. But she brought these beautiful fans, and I wanted to do something neat because I had an idea of doing light painting with this one. But let me show you where I've added a circle behind somebody. Okay, I think I did it on this one, right? So when you're processing in Lightroom, you have the ability to mask the subject in the background, right? The selection of the subject in the background. And that's what I did here, right? So here's all my different masks, right? I use a lot of masks, right? Obviously her teeth aren't showing, so I don't need this one. One of these is a preset that I have for portrait retouching, and it softens the skin and so on, okay? So I'll show you what these are doing. This one is darkening the floor. Okay. I don't think I did anything on her on this one. I just did some shadows. The background, yeah, I didn't actually use these ones. But this mask here is a radial gradient like that. And then I did minus the subject. Okay. So if I turn off the minus, okay, you can see that the radial gradient is brightening everything. But because I said subtract subject, it looks like it's behind her, right? See that? So now I have this spotlight that I can just move around. So I wanted to separate her a bit from the background. So I put that spotlight. So there's a little Lightroom trick for you. The background is it's a painted muslin or a dyed muslin background. It's made for photography. So it's meant to be stuffed in the bag, and it looks kind of like tie-dyed. If you want to see the original, let me see. Okay, that's what the background looks like. Just a muslin. Looks like tie-dye. Okay. The one I wanted to show you was this one. So we got a little creative doing what is light painting, and I've done a whole article on this. Rob, can you find the article I did on light painting? Okay, and here's the color image. And what I did was I just have this wand with these sparkly things, and I sort of waved it behind her. This is a 15-second exposure. Okay. And then I did one in full black and white, and then I did one where she's just black and white. So I just masked it out on her, right? So that she's in color, and the blue thing in the background is she's in black and white, and the blue thing is in color. I could do the opposite way as well, but I just wanted to see. So let's just have a look at those. Let's do a vote. Rob, can you do a quick poll? Are you paying attention, Rob? Or just put it in the chat. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Okay, so number 1 is partial black and white and color. 2 is all black and white, and 3 is all color. Which one do you prefer? Kelly says one of her backgrounds is across the patio door to keep the cold out. Oh, hey, Holly. 1, 3, 3, 2, 2. Kind of all over the place. So lots of threes. I posted these on Facebook too, and I was getting either all color or all black and white. So it seems like my idea of the partial color wasn't as popular as I thought. But I was just playing around, right? And the whole idea behind this photo shoot was I just wanted to experiment. I just wanted to take some photos, right? Yes, it was quite interesting because she came in with her hair all kind of in curlers and clipped up, and then she was doing makeup on a couple of the other girls. She did Jamie's makeup, and she did Nancy's makeup, and then she came out in this fully burlesque outfit with these fans, and I was like, "Whoa, I don't even recognize you." Yeah, she just looked fantastic. Okay, interesting. So lots of different votes all over the place. So it seems like I got votes for all three. Awesome. Like I said, just experiment with stuff, right? Okay. Let's see what else I got here. All right, let me go back to this here and get to Marguerite's. Okay. So this one. There we go. Okay, so first thing, again, remember, don't change the, I'm not going to mess with it this time, but I want to do the contrast first, right? So we can do whites and blacks. And I know that I'm going to want more detail in the middle there. We'll see that. And I'm definitely going to want to darken the sky. So I know for sure I'm going to select the sky. And I think what's going to work in the sky is dehaze. So dehaze tends to add drama. See that? So look at that. All by itself. It could go quite dramatic. And I'm going to do a little bit of noise reduction here because when we go with dehaze, it often adds some noise. See that? It's kind of getting a little crunchy. So I'm going to automatically do some denoise along with that. Now, it doesn't matter what color, but it's got some blue, which is fine. Okay. Because if we could even add some blue. So again, this is just, faking out the black and white conversion. So if we add some blue in here, it's going to work to our advantage when we switch over to black and white. Right? And maybe just brighten overall. I'm going to give a little bit of clarity overall. And maybe a edge vignette. Okay, so now we're pretty dramatic. Let's go black and white. Aha. Okay, so my theory of the blue didn't work because in Luminar it would, right? But because I added this color on the mask, I added the color, it kept the color. So that's not going to work. Blew my own theory. All right, now we have the black and white. Okay, we still have some blue in the sky. Remember, yellow. So look at the table is yellow, but so is the ground. Not so much green, interestingly enough. But I am going to add this contrast here. I literally just play with the sliders back and forth just to see what's going on, just to see what's happening. What's it going to do? What's it going to darken? Let's darken the ground. Okay, we definitely want that table to stand out. But see how orange is darkening the ground? I'm going to go with that. So now the table really stands out. Okay. I feel like I want more contrast overall. Another way to do that is with the curves. Right? So if I do so like this, you can add what's called a mid-tone curve. So I'm trying to get the adjustments in the middle here and then add a third and a fourth point to try and keep this part straight. So see how the curve is literally just in the middle? But if I want more contrast, I want more contrast down here. It's these mid-tones. This is another one actually that would work well in Luminar, to be honest. This one would work well in Luminar. But let's try the color grading. Okay, so remember how I said we can adjust the add the tint, but we can also adjust the brightness here. So I've got midtones, shadows. So that's kind of nice. And highlights. Right. I just feel like I want more contrast in these trees here. They just seem sort of, I don't know, flat. So let's try a mask. And I'm just going to do, I'm trying to think about the best way to add contrast here. So I'm going to do a radial gradient right across the middle, like that. And then I'm just going to do subtract sky. Okay, that's not bad. Okay, so now I just want to increase the contrast. So I'm going to increase the contrast, the whites, the blacks. There we go. Okay, so I'm increasing the whites. Playing around with all of these different sliders here. Like so. Clarity helps. Look at that. Clarity helps. Okay. And now I'm going to do another one. Okay, so this is the trees. I'm going to do another one. I want to do just the grass. Okay, so I'm going to do a linear gradient like this. And then I'm going to do subtract subject, hoping it picks out the table, which it did. So my fingers were crossed on that. And then I'm going to do the same kind of thing. I just want more contrast in the grass. Okay. It just seems really flat. So I'm just trying to give it some additional punch. There we go. That works. Notice I'm going plus clarity and minus texture. So I want contrast, but not necessarily texture. Okay. So now this is the grass. I use a lot of masks in my editing. Okay. So there's the before and after. I might crop this one just a little bit. Things that bother me here. Rob, if you could please share the link to the cropping video. I talk a lot about watching things on the edge, and what's bothering me here is this top edge has two dark bits. So I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to come in a little closer so there's not so much foreground, which gets rid of a couple trees on that side, but that's okay. I want to go right about there. Okay, so I got rid of these dark areas on the top and just less space on the bottom. Okay. If I want to keep the space on the left, I could just go more panoramic. If we want to get rid of some of these things in the background, like there's a tree in the water here, so we could literally just use the cloning tool to get rid of it. And again, this is just things that are, final details and paying attention to details, cloning out things like this that are just distracting, anything that grabs your attention away from the subject. And remember that trick of looking at your image upside down, right? So where does your eye go? Okay. See, now we've got this red mark again. I find that after I use the cloning tool, it often shows up, and then you just have to do update masks. And after it's done, I'm going to rename this guy. And I might dial this down a little bit. So this dehaze that I used, I might dial it down. There we go. Just a little bit less texture. So I like the dehaze. I like what it's doing, but just not so much texture. So it kind of looks stormy. Before, after. Okay, so no sky replacement needed. You just need to bring up the drama. What kind of device makes the light swirls? If you could please share a link to that, Rob. There's my light painting brushes review. Let me see if I can find it. It's something called the light painting brushes, and I have quite a few of them. There's different kinds of wands. You attach them to the end of a flashlight, and it's a lot of fun to play with. Yeah, so Rob's got the article, and there's the article, and those are the kinds of tools that I'm using. Okay. Great question, Marguerite. You'd like to tone down the table. Well, I certainly can, and that's easy enough to do. All we got to do is dial down the yellow. Okay, but remember there's yellow in the grass too. How's that? Why would this work in black and white? Would it result in a better black and white, or is it easier to create the image you're trying to create? No, it's just different. There's a tool in Luminar that adds mid-tone contrast. Let me just go and find it. There's a tool. Now keep in mind that these are not in black and white because Luminar doesn't recognize the Lightroom edits, but there's a tool. There's a couple of different ones. Okay, so there's color harmony, but there's another one called super contrast, and you can add mid-tone contrast. And it looks like I'm trying to find where the trees are at, so it looks like they're more shadows. Okay, so see how I can add contrast to the shadows, but I can do the same kind of thing that I did with the luminance sliders in Lightroom. It's very similar to what I did with the color grading tool. Right? So it just allows you to adjust mid-tone, highlight, and shadow contrast. Right? Like the white in the background trees. Yeah, I just wanted a little more contrast there because it just looked like a blob, right? That's possible. Yeah, his name is Jason. He's got a lot of videos on his YouTube. And yes, those articles are on the website. So the link that Rob is providing is on our website, Shelley. Oh, that's funny, Marguerite. The bright table made obvious that the seat on the one side is missing. You know what? I did not even notice that until you just said that. That's funny. That is funny. Yeah, if you want to see his YouTube channel, I think there's two of them. He's got his own channel, I believe, and then there's also light painting brushes. So Light Painting Pro is his YouTube channel, and Jason Page, yeah, is his name. And no, that's not his website. I think I have it all on this article. So just go to the article because I'm pretty sure I link to all of that stuff on here. So that will help you out. Okay, let's see how we're doing. I think we have time for one more. Let's see. I did that one. I did that one. Okay, so let's do Shelley's because Shelley was asking about let me see what your question was on this one actually. Composition, should it be black and white? Okay. So let's take a look at these. So remember all of the things that I talked about. What looks good in black and white? Contrast, right? Texture. Do we have contrast and texture? I think I like the first image better. It's more simplified, and that little tree in the middle, I like this one preferably over the other one. So I think yes. But if we want to, let's convert this, but let's adjust the color. Okay. There's a little on the yellow side. And when we convert this, now that it's sort of bluish, when we convert this to black and white, I'm going to do the shift double click trick. Look at the contrast now. That went a little too far. Now, when we convert to black and white, we've got a ton of contrast. That's really interesting. It's almost really abstract, right? Look at that. And of course, we can add some texture. Now, if I add texture everywhere, right, your eye kind of gets lost on this tree. So this is why I added texture using a mask. So I'm going to do a radial gradient, and I'm going to add the texture just here. Okay. So I'm going to go plus texture, and I might even brighten it a little bit because it's kind of dark in that area. See, now it's starting to stand out, right? And I'm going to call this tree. Now that I've got this selected, I can actually do an opposite. So I can duplicate and invert it. So now it's giving me the same selection, but opposite, right? And on this one, I'm going to lower the texture. Okay. Not too much. I don't want it to look blurry. And contrast maybe just a little bit as well. Look at the difference, darkness, okay? So before the masks, after. See how that just brings that spotlight of that center one into focus? And I'm going to do the shift double click again. I find like it's still a little bit lost, and that has to do with this stuff up here. So maybe a crop. Let's crop in a little bit more. Let's try something like that. Or we could even try something panorama, because there's a lot of stripes here and it's all really horizontal. So let's go with that. Yeah, I think I'm liking this idea. Okay, so now I'm really watching edges. Okay, so I want to have a clean edge at the top. And there is our finished image. So now you can't tell if it's desert or snow, but it's kind of almost abstract. I like it. What do you guys think? Right, Stephanie? I didn't notice the bench was missing either. Oh, I saw what was in your head. Aha. Well, that's what was in my head, Shelly. So I guess you're in my head or I'm in your head, which is a little weird, right? Karen, love it. Awesome. So now, if we want, I can apply that same setting. Let's do that on the next one. Okay, so if I go next image, if I go previous, it applies everything. Okay, so I could have done a copy and paste or a sync. It applies everything. And now we just have to do a little adjusting. Where do I want it? I think I want it like here, because now we've got this tree over here. We've also got some dust spots. I can see there's a dust spot here. So make sure you clean your sensor. There's a few dust spots. But now we need to fix this mask because this mask is in the wrong place, right? So because I copied it from the other one, we just need to move it over here, like so. This one seems a little bit softer. We could add more contrast. I think this one can handle a bit more contrast. Okay. So now it's all about the waves. That's really cool. It does make a great abstract. And if we want to add some color, right, we've got toning, color grading. And in this case, if we want to add some of that blue and make it look cold, look at that. This one actually works really well, I think, for a split tone. So we've got blue. Yeah. So where the sun is hitting, yellow, and in the shadows, blue. Something like that. I like duotones as well. You're welcome, Shelley. Is it possible to get the tree sticks to pop out darker? On this one or the other one, Todd? I think you mean the other one, right? I'm gonna go back to the other one. Might be tricky because I don't know if it's going to select the tree as a subject. If I say select subject, let's see what it comes up with. Yeah, so it doesn't even recognize a subject. I could try object. And the thing with object, if I just draw a square around it, yeah, see, it's picking up the snow as well. So let's just see. Yeah, see, if I do that, it's going to be a tricky masking job because they're so small. So the answer is tricky. I could try on this one here because I added texture. There we go. That's a little better. So let's see how it's applying to that whole area. Is that a little more like what you're thinking, Todd? It's going to be really tricky to select just those trees, just the sticks, because if I do it by contrast or tone, it's going to pick up the stripes as well. Yeah, no worries. Okay. Now these ones Edward sent. I know Edward is. Are you here, Edward? I don't know if he's here. Have you seen Edward, Rob? Have you seen Edward? Because he sent me these color infrared images. Now, the interesting thing about these is look how they display in Lightroom, right? We see sort of pink and orange, but in Luminar, if I go back here, they display blue, which is interesting because I haven't done anything to them. Have not seen Edward. Okay, so I'm going to save his because these are color infrared images, and I did some playing around with these on his earlier. But I want to do one more conversion in Luminar. Now this one, I think. Okay, so yeah, this is a DNG. Okay, so in this one, it's the same kind of idea. We've got colors, right? So we've got blue, yellow, green. And if I go in and work with the color first, right? Remember I said the tones, I can brighten the yellow, right? Darken the green, and then the blue, I think I might want to actually lighten it because in this case, the sky is actually, it could go black. And I'm not sure I want it to go black. I might even put some clouds in there. But see how I'm shifting the color, right? Looks like there's orange in the clouds as well. Darken that red at the bottom there, right? And color contrast or color harmony, and then the color contrast tool is really great for this too. So look at what that does. I kind of want to, I'm trying to get one where it darkens. So there we go. The sky's a little bit lighter there. I like that. So all these things are just going to affect when we do the black and white conversion, right? I did not do develop raw. So notice how it's still there at the bottom. I can come back to develop raw anytime. I just want to increase the contrast a little bit. Let's keep the highlights down. There's not much to do, honestly, in this one. So I'm just going to convert it. So black and white, convert. And now we've got these colors to play with. Right. And the red. But all of the tone changes that we did in color work here as well. Right? So they work in our favor. Did I lighten the blue? I did. There we go. Somewhere in there. I'm just looking for contrast, maximum contrast. Right? And what I would do on this one is the foreground is really bright. So I would do develop, darken, add blacks. This is a really quick way to darken sort of an edge of an image like this, rather than trying to do dodge and burn. This was my dodge and burn hack before we had a dodge and burn tool. I'm just using the develop tool across the bottom. And of course, we could do an edge vignette. Okay, so there's the conversion. This is a great example because of the colors, right? We've got the yellow, the green, the blue. I tried to bring some of the other ones in that were color as well, and I thought I could convert some of these too, because you've got lots of great tools to work with, like this one, for example, right? If we go black and white on this one, we've got those same tones, right? So yellow, right? We can brighten the wall. Look at how much yellow there is in the trees. Okay. Or darken the wall. Darkening the wall, look at that. The man really stands out. So we can completely shift the look. Okay, so bright yellow wall. Now he stands out. Right? You get to decide. But these sliders in the black and white tool are where the power is. Okay, I think we're good for today. Any other questions about converting to black and white? I have not picked a topic for next week. Oh, that reminds me. Yes, Rob said we want to talk about, so there will be a stream next week, but then the week after that, I am away. So we have one next week on the 21st, and then I will be back on February 4th. So one more next week. And I'm thinking we'll do landscape again, because we've got lots of great landscape photos. I could do some of these additional landscapes. So if you want to submit any landscape photos, you can go ahead and do that. Do I have the submission link? No, I do not. So landscape, there. So if you want to submit any landscape photos, sure, I'm always open to more photos, because like I said, I'm save them and carry them forward if I don't use them. So Rob, if you could please post a link to that. And we're going to finish up today. And we managed to do it and not have the power go out or freeze to death. Any kind of landscape, Janelle. Yep, anything that's a landscape. So you decide what that means. Yep. Yeah, big or small. big landscape or small landscape. You're most welcome, Stephanie. Always great to have you. You're so welcome, Shelley. I'm actually going to be making some black and white presets for Luminar coming up, specifically for portraits, but you'll be able to use them on anything. Are there any updated features that help with photo restoration? Well, David pointed out that there are automated tools now for that in Photoshop. I don't do a lot of that. Maybe David, you guys could connect in the Facebook group, because David had some information on that. He does a lot of restorations, and I do believe there is a tool for it in Photoshop. And for doing restorations with Luminar, you could be using some of the new gen erase tools, would be my suggestion. I do have a video on photo restorations, yes, with Luminar. But the new generation tools, generative tools, will be really helpful as well. Glad you were all able to come too. Thank you. You're welcome. And yes, he's the Dave I'm talking about. That's the David I'm talking about. If you guys are both in the our Facebook group, I can drop a link into that for you here in the chat. If you're both in our Facebook group, you can connect there. There's our Facebook group, and you can talk about photo restorations. So thanks everyone for joining. I will see you next week for landscape. So yes, stay warm wherever you may be. If you're in the southern hemisphere, stay cool because it's into your summer. So take care, and we'll see you next week.